Hey, Gladys, they fighting on the YouTubes. Protectorate is being led by Grand Scrutator Severius. His battle group includes a Revenger, named the Creator's Rebuke, a Vigilant, named Rampart of the Righteous, and a Repenter, named Pyre. He also has a Vassal Mechanic, named Godwin Atwood, Exemplar Warder Elias Gade, and a Reclaimer Gatekeeper, named Razak Adokar. A unit of Exemplar Bastions led by Ansel Ellsworth, along with Brill Ashburn and Victor Murdoch. And 2 units of Choir of Menoth, led by War Priest Dorn Gilfin and Dexter Hitch, with neophytes Barak Lovat, Alexei Orlov, Abedin Sadhadi, and Farhan Ul Upra. Protectorate chose the command cards: Spotters, Breakthrough, Savagery, Arcane Forces, and Sentry Duty. Circle is being led by Cromac, Champion of the Worm. His battle group includes Getorix and a pureblood warpwolf named Remus. He also has Lord of the Feast and a unit of Thorn Blood Pack led by Ronan, along with Bralic and Kaug. Circle chose the command cards: Power Swell, Arcane Forces, Put the Fires Out, Spotters, and Take Cover. Circle won the starting role and chose to go second. For terrain layout, we just randomly put stuff where it looked fun. For scenario, we used a modified version of Scenic Steamroller designed by Thomas and Dessa O'Neill, modified with permission. A link to the variant is in the description below. Rolling a D3, one piece of terrain was chosen to be scored. Donna, playing Circle, chose the forest in the center of the table to be scored by units. Protectorate was deployed in 2 groups on either side of the stone tower. On the left of the tower was the Vigilant, the Repenter, and Severius, with the Mechanic and Dorn's Choir behind them. On the right of the tower was Revenger and the Bastions, with Dexter's Choir and the Reclaimer behind them. Gade was advanced deployed ahead of the Vigilant. Circle was deployed in a single line formation. From left to right was the Blood Pack, Getorix, Cromac, and Remus. Lord of the Feast was advanced deployed in front of Cromac. Getorix was Gade's initial prey target. Ambushed by the Nightmare Empire, Severius and a small entourage were separated from the larger Midnight force he was leading to link up with the Northern Crusade. As they worked to make their way back to the Faithful, the Grand Scrutator found himself walking directly into a Tharn encampment, full of warriors and beasts, equally anxious for the hunt. Protectorate. Turn 1. The Grand Scrutator moved beside the stone tower. From the safety of its shadow, he prayed the lawgiver's favor over the faithful accompanying him. He blessed Gade with Menoth's vision. And channeled a defensive invocation through the Divine Mechanica in the Creator's Rebuke. Ansel and his Bastions felt a rush of energy surging through their bodies and spirits simultaneously. Severius motioned to Elias Gade to stealthily advance into the clearing ahead of a forest of cherry trees. He then sent his warjacks, Rampart and Pyre, to either side of the Exemplar Warder, strengthening their forward position. Godwin ran behind the Vigilant, readying his tools to support Menoth's blessed war machines in his charge. Next, Dorn led his choir forward, singing a hymn amidst the warjacks to bless them with safe passage. Creator's Rebuke ran around the right side of the tower. Ansel rallied his bastions, running to secure the right side of the open field. The Reclaimer stayed nearby, holy flames burning all around him. Lastly, Dexter and his neophytes consecrated Rebuke with safe passage through song. Circle. Turn 1. Driven by the Devourer's hunger for blood and sacrifice, Lord of the Feast shambled toward the forest. Remus tapped into the warp, temporarily transforming his physical form into a ghostly visage, before running through a large boulder in his path. Cromac agitated the pureblood, riling the fury inside him. Ronan growled a bestial command, sending his blood pack racing to protect the forest from the intruders moving toward their encampment. As Ronan and Caug towed the edge of the tree line, Cromac called out to the three of them to take cover, recognizing the forest wasn't dense enough to protect them entirely on its own. The Barbarian King then walked up behind the Feast Lord and reached his mind out to both of his warp wolves. First, he awakened Gedrix's spirit, allowing him to more readily access the animus inside of him. To Remus, he imparted a vengeful desire to lash out at those who might attempt to harm him. As Gedrix connected his spirit to the worm, every sinew in his body tightened and grew stronger. Next, dagger-like bone shards began to grow across his body, piercing outward from his flesh. Cromac urged him to run outside of the forest, and provoke the massive war beast with savage fury. Protectorate. Turn 2. Severius offered up a benediction to strengthen both Pyre and Rebuke, before praying continued blessings over Gade and the Bastions. Elias could make out the faint silhouettes of the savage Thorn crouching inside the foliage. He steadied his feet to aim, prepared to unleash his own savage attack on the blood pack. His first arrow slammed into the side of a tree, sending pink petals showering down onto Caug's head. Blessed by the overseeing eye of Menoth, his second shot struck true. The arrow slammed into the Tharn's left shoulder. As the pain coursed through his body, Caug was left confused as to why his innate healing ability was failing him. Severius sent Rampart around the side of the forest in hopes of protecting Gade's left flank. The Elder Warcaster then directed Pyre to advance towards Remus. Raising his flamethrower, the Warjack bathed his target in Menoth's fury, adding Severius' prayers to steady the shot. The crude oily flames scorched the pureblood's hide, lighting his fur on fire. The mechanic continued to keep pace with Rampart, staying just behind the jack, girded by its size. Dorn and his subordinate priests shielded the warjacks in front of them with psalms of protection. As Remus struggled to fan out the flames engulfing his hide, the bastions charged into him. Though both Ansel and Victor's blades missed, Brill's blade sunk deep into the Warpwolf's right side. Remus howled in agony before lashing out at the Bastion in vengeance. As his armor was torn by the pureblood's claws, Brill's brothers attempted to deflect the attack, each taking a portion of the vicious onslaught onto themselves. Severius' mind reached in the cortex of the Creator's rebuke, and the warjack's eyes were alight with holy flame. Sending the Revenger charging into Remus, Severius guided its halberd blade, plunging it through the Warpwolf's shoulder. The Protectorate Warcaster impelled the jack to strike Remus again, causing the hyper-aggressive warbeast to stumble forward seeking revenge. Razak followed swiftly behind Ansel, the minifixes adorning his robes jangling as he moved. Dexter's choir marched forward. Singing a hymn of shielding protection over rebuke. Severius then ran around the tower, staying safely towards the rear of the advancing line of offense, and also out of view of the camera, behind a strategically placed tree apparently. Oh, damn it. Circle. Turn 2. Remus batted out the flames on his fur, as Cromac eased the violent tension building inside his warbeast. The Warlock mentally prodded both Warpwolves, maintaining the vengeful and awakened spirits he'd stirred in them earlier. Lord of the Feast's raven screeched as it sighted the Bastion swarming Remus. The Avatar of the Unsleeping One vanished into the brush, reappearing a moment later beside Victor. As the Feast Lord emerged from the shadows, Victor and Ansel took defensive stances, slashing at them with their consecrated halberds. The mindless horror deflected Ansel's blade, but Victor struck him in the chest. With gore seeping from his wound, Lord of the Feast swung Wormblade in a wide arc, catching all before him with its blade. Victor's armor held, but Ansel and Remus found their flesh torn by the ancient accursed weapon. The Bastions once again took on the agony of another of their brother's wounds to sustain the cohesion of the unit. The Barbarian King howled an impassioned cry, inciting his warbeast into a bloodlust. Next, he charged into Victor, bearing the blade of Wrathrock into the skull of the knight. The devastating blow was too much for Victor to withstand, and more than his brothers could bear to save him. As the Bastion's corpse slumped to the ground, the Thorn Warlock was enlivened by the bloody sacrifice. Razak worked to quickly capture Victor's soul, ensuring safe passage to Urkane. Cromac snarled, provoking his tribe into utter carnage. He then sent a surge of arcane power blasting through the Reclaimer. As Razak's body was racked in agony, his very spirit was ripped asunder, torn from his physical being. Cromac forced Remus to tap into the warp, both to heal his wounds and magnify his strength. The pureblood unleashed a deathly howl into the face of the lead bastion, driven by Cromac to amplify the accuracy and intensity. Powerful sound waves crashed over Ansel and the neophyte behind him, fracturing their spines and ending both of their lives. Finally, the pureblood lashed out at Brill, clawing into the heavily armored knight and ending his life. Ronan and his tree walkers charged through the forest into the face of Elias Gade. Though Ronan's blade would have surely torn into the exemplar warder, Menoth's vision protected him from any damage otherwise. He attempted to shoot Gade, but the arrow flew wide of the target, as Ronan found it especially difficult at such an extremely close range. Gade's fortune would not last, however. Calg dug his blade into the exemplar warder's neck, viciously slicing into his jugular. The Thorn warrior then sent an arrow towards Dorn, who dodged it and stood defiant in the face of the savagery. Roused by the bloody sacrifice his brother made of Gade, Bralic tore into the neophytes in front of him. Where his blade ended Alexi's life, his bow cut down Barak, leaving Dorn the lone member of his choir still standing. Getorix flexed as his strength was amplified and once more mutated his body with spikes of bone shards. The hulking Warpwolf then charged into Rampart, severing the hoses attached to the Warjack's right arm. He bit into the Vigilant's torso to tear away armor, exposing Blessed Mechanica housed inside. With that, Cromac urged Getorix to raise his great axe a second time, slamming it down into Rampart's chest and extinguishing its heartfire, leaving the Warjack a crumpled pile of debris. With no one controlling the sacred forest, neither side improved their strategic standing in the area. Protectorate. Turn 3. Severius prayed more blessings upon his remaining warjacks as Godwin mustered his courage. The aging mechanic looked to Dorn and asked the rhetorical question. "For the Creator?" "Always and forevermore, my brother," exclaimed the war priest. Godwin moved behind Calg and swung his multi-tool with all his might. The Thorn warrior's wounds healed almost immediately afterwards, deflating any excitement Godwin had temporarily enjoyed. Severius leaned on the war priest's position to spot targets for Pyre. Dorn followed the mechanic's lead, attempted to hit Calg with his battle staff, but his attack was blocked by a timely parry with the warrior's bow. Dexter and Abaddon spread out so that both warjacks can be inspired by their hymn of battle. With Rebuke tying up Remus, Severius redirected Pyre's attention to the blood pack bearing down on the Warcaster. The Warjack's flamethrower came to life for a second time, pouring holy fire across all three savage warriors. Braylic was engulfed in flames, almost dying as pain tore through his body. Falling to his knees, he somehow still managed to tap into the warp and heal slightly. Ronan and Calg were both caught in the fire, though neither were burned as badly as their brother. Each healed what they could, but the Repenter was far from done. Raising its war flail high overhead, Pyre slammed it down onto the fallen Thorn warrior, ending his life in a spray of blood and burnt flesh. The Grand Scrutator called down Menoth's divine might across the battlefield. Losing Gade, the Bastions, and one of his most stalwart warjacks almost shook the elder warcaster to his core, but his faith remained strong and unwavering. Cursing Ronan, he possessed the heretic's mind, influencing to attack his brother beside him. Severius then moved behind Pyre to evade the incoming blood pack, who would no doubt seek revenge in time. The Revenger moved to block Remus's route to Severius and the choir before stabbing into the warwolf with the blade of his halberd. The pureblood's mind and body were crippled as the blade cut across his neck. Remus attempted to retaliate, but wasn't able to mount any offense in his battered and beaten state. Rebuke then slammed its shield into Remus, but the beast stood defiant. As the battle raged on, neither side improved their position in the forest. Circle. Turn 3. The fire on Calg went out, but Ronan was still plagued by the flames. Cromac pulled the furious energy in from his beast. In an effort to keep his pureblood in the fight, Cromac urged him to strengthen and heal himself. Next, he commanded the beast to exert all of his energy to attempt to lift Rebuke and throw the Warjack to temporarily neutralize the threat. Though the Warpwolf struggled in the effort, he succeeded in hurling the Revenger to the ground, with the added bonus of crushing a neophyte in the process. The Feast Lord sent his raven forward in search of more sacrificial offerings to the worm. Spotting the Repenter in the distance, the raven signaled to its master, who shifted through the atmosphere to bring his worm blade slashing into Pyre and the Menites near him. The ancient blade severed the war priest in two at the waist. The slaughter served to amplify the living horror's continued attacks. Both Severius and Pyre were struck in the attack, though the Warcaster's prayers to reinforce his power field protected him from most of the damage. Gedrix's bond with the worm sent the former Thorn King into a murderous rage. his axe and teeth tearing into the mechanic and the war priest who dared to threaten his brothers. The Blood Pack turned their bows toward Severus and his Repenter. Ronan's arrow sunk deep into Pyre's right breastplate. While Cal's just barely pierced the Grand Scrutator's power field, sinking the tip into Severus' left arm. Cromac took advantage of Rebuke's situation before the Warjack could right itself. Charging into the fallen Revenger, the Tharn Warlock brought his blade down across the center of its chassis, nearly separating Rebuke's lower body from its torso. Exerting himself to attack again, he brought Rathrock's blade crashing down into the disabled Jack, utterly destroying him. Standing above the wreckage, Cromac stared down the Warcaster in the distance, howling a chilling cry of victory. Severus recognized the tide of battle had turned too severely to manage, and retreated to live to fight another day, lest he die in vain at the hands of such a savage and unforgiving heretic.